Right. So when it's come to this question, right? So I just read the question again. So they have given the background of the question, background of the company. ABC Corp is a mid-sized technological firm that has been experiencing rapid growth over the past 5 years. The company's board of directors currently consists of 10 members, right? Including both executive and non-executive directors. And so they are having 10 members. Right. Recently, the board has faced several challenges relating to governance, strategic issues, and risk management. So they are having some issues regarding different areas. Right. So these are the key characters. So there are the chairman, CEO, chief finance officer, CEO, and the independent and non-executive director. Right. So first challenge they are having is the board composition and the diversity, which we have discussed. Right. The board has criticized for its lack of diversity, both in terms of gender and professional background. Right. So they are in a concerns regarding the diversity. So mainly their focus is on the gender and the professional background. There is an ongoing debate about the ideal mix of inside and outside director. So inside outside means executive and division of responsibilities. They have faced George, the chairman, has assumed of interfering in operational matters with his traditional dominance of the CEO. He's having some sort of domination power. Right? And there are concerns that the role of chairman and CEO are not clearly defined, leading to conflict of inefficiencies. And thirdly, executive director's performance. The executive directors, particularly the CFO and CEO, have been under scrutiny for their decision making and operation management. Right. So these are some challenges they are having within their board. Right. So these are the board challenges. Right. So what is the risk power? Right. As a new governance consultant side by ABC Corp, you are tasked with addressing the following issues. Write a detailed report addressing the above issues. Your report should include board composition and diversity. Right. Propose plan to enhance the diversity of the board, consider gender, minorities, and professional from the different. So you need to highlight these things. Right? Recommend the ideal proportion of inside and outside directors for ABC Corp, explaining your rationale. Right? Division of responsibilities, develop a clear division of responsibility between the chairman and the CEO, and minimize conflict of interest and improve efficiency. Suggest measurements to ensure that John Smith focuses on his role as a chairman without encouraging and on operational matters. That means he's working as CEO as well. Right? Executive directors' performance. Propose a framework for evaluating the performance of executive directors, focusing on strategic oversights, operational management, and the leadership. And finally, you have to recommend actions to improve the accountability and the performance of the CFO and CEO. So these are the things you need to include in your report. Right. So when you're answering to this question, you need to write a report. Right. Some of your colleagues, like the other, like some of them just point out the points, right? Whatever, so you have to write a report, right? So I just summarized the few points, right? So I will upload this document to you, right? Yeah. So we can start the report for NBC crop, right? You can write the subject and the whatever the date and the subject, right? So first question is board composition and diversity, right? So you need to start with that, right? The first one is what is the issue? So we don't have diversity in the report. What we have to do? We need to enhance the diversity, right? That's what we have to do. As a consultant, that is my first priority under this board composition and diversity, right? So how we can improve? දැන් මෙතනදී අපි කරන්න ඕනේ දැන් අපි කන්සල්ටන්ට් නේ. ඒතර අපි මොකද කරන්න ඕනේ? අපි සජෙස්ට් කරන්න ඕනේ. ප්‍රොපෝසල්ස්. right? ඒ සජෙස්ට් කරන ප්‍රොපෝසල් එක අපිට රැෂනලයිස් වෙනවා. right? දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝට කියන්න බෑ මේ අපි වෙන කියන්න අපිට මේ අපි ෆාස්ටා පාස්සේ තියෙන පර්සන්ටේජ් එක වැඩි කරන්න කියලා කියන්න බෑ. you need to specific. කොච්චර ගාණකින් වැඩි කරන්නද? කොච්චර ගාණකින් වැඩි කරන්නද? ඒවා කන්සල්ටන්ට්. දැන් මේගොල්ලෝ අහන්නේ වැඩි කරන්න කියන එක ඒගොල්ලෝ අහනවා. කීයකින් වැඩි කරන්නේ? ඩිරෙක්ටිව් එක කියන්නේ. රිලියන්. ඊට පස්සේ ඒක රැෂනලයිස් කරනවා. අයිබන් කියන්නේ. So these are the examples, right? So you can rationalize. There's a no right and wrong answer, right? So what you have to do is if you can rationalize it, then it will become correct answer. Right? So when you're looking at the gender diversity, the first question is gender diversity. Implement a policy to ensure minimum of 30% of female representation on the board. And this is actually a case study, ACC question, right? So same answer I have it, right? So they are saying minimum of 30% right, of female representation on the board. This can be achieved through target recruitment and development program for potential female board members. So we know when it comes to the female directors, there are minimum level of number we need. So therefore, we are considering only 30%. Right. And how we are going to acquire that 30%? We can implement the kind of training programs. Right. We can identify the potential female directors. Right. We can implement the policies. So these are the strategies. We can go for this 30% of female. Right. Then make over 40%, 50%, 60% will be enough to but then rationalize one. Right. So you have rationalize. Then next diversity activities and recruit individuals from various ethnic backgrounds to reflect the diverse customer base and global market the company operates in. Right. So sometimes they just come to companies. So this is the kind of issue. Right. एक background से काटने का तो issue है right. Any sort of rationalize करना. अभी एक background से काटने का तो वो नहीं. अभी customer base expanded. Right. Our customer base expanded. And also their equipment is different. The perspective will be different. So that perspective you can get to the profit. That will be a beneficial loss. Right. Then the professional diversity include professionals from non-business backgrounds such as academia, public service, and other industries to bring fresh perspective and expertise. Right. So you can get different people to your board. Like academics, lecturers, right? Like the public service officers, like accountants, public accountants, right? Right. And other industries. So you can go for other industries as well. Right. So that is how you are enhancing the diversity in your business. So when I write it, you will try it in a kind of a big way, right? So you need to have a quality writing kind of you will write kind of essay. Right? But what you have to do is you need to rationalize what you are pointing out. Right? So that's the part. Right. So then the next question is the executive non-executive mix. Right? Inside outside mix. Right? So ideal proportion of inside to outside because of ABC Pro would be 40% inside and 60% outside. Right? 40% inside and 60% outside. That means we are having 10 directors. 4 directors from inside as the executive director, and other 6 members are coming as non-executive director. I can give you make an idea to written. एक वोट ने कितना वेनस है अमेरिका वेनस ने एक वोट ने अभी तो मेरा अभी वो नॉन एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर्स आता नहीं जाए एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर्स को देखना है लोग नॉन एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर्स और पावर में but here we have 64 right 64 members so that means one more different right yeah वाले इच्छा लोग को तो ये नहीं लेकिन वाले गाड़ी देने बाकी है तूने देखा देने बाकी नहीं है हमारे के गाड़ी को देना होगा so that's अब here are 40% inside and 60% outside directors this makes ensure that the board benefits from the deep operational knowledge of the inside while maintaining the majority of independent right so in your board you need to maintain the independence because you are responsible for the shareholders right to do that you need to overcome the conflict of interest how we have overcome the conflict of interest through the independence right so objective viewpoint from the outsiders this balance can enhance governance and decision making by integrating detailed company insights with the independence scrutiny right so you need to have both right one of the disadvantages of independent is they don't know about the company's operation so we need to have both independency and the knowledge about the company's operation so this would be the ideal mix right then next question is division of responsibilities right what do you mean by division of responsibilities the CEO chairman needs to be two person or can say CEO chairman duality right to minimize the conflict and improve the efficiency clearly delineate the roles and responsibilities between the chairman and the CEO as follows right chairman responsibilities we have learned right what are the chairman's roles we have discussed and we have discussed about the CEO role right so you need to write those things right so what you have to do is you need to clearly mention these are the chairman roles these are the CEO roles so that is a one challenge here so they don't know what the role of the CEO and what the role of the chairman right and so how we are doing how we are preventing the overlaps of these two professions or two roles formalize role descriptions create detailed job description for the chairman and CEO role highlighting the boundaries of their responsibilities right and regular performance review so we can do the regular performance review and board can oversee right so these are some strategies that we can prevent the overlap between these chairman and CEO positions right then executive director's performance right so here we have discussed the executive director's performance right so we need to suggest what are the ways we can evaluate the executive director's performance right the first one is strategic oversight right so these are actually executive director's roles and you remember variant executive director roles is however we are the consultant right so what are executive director performance evaluate so you need to write it this way evaluate how well the executive directors contribute to the development and execution of the company's strategies right? Whether the role is performing accordingly so that's what we are looking at the evaluative performance part. So you need to make sure you need to go with the roles and you need to look at whether these people are performing their role correctly. Right. Right. Yeah, role without that thing. Right. You need to use this word or evaluate, assess, measure. Right. Right. Then the recommendation to improve the accountability and the performance, regular performance review, right? Professional development programs, you can have a development programs or we can say training programs. And you can have a clear performance metrics. And also finally we can have the communication. Communication is the best. Right? to learn. Right. Funding is in the way, whatever you get. Right. After performance measure around performance attitude around the communication is so you can enhance the communication in your company. Right. So these things need to be included in the answer. Right. When answer. Right. For this question, in ACCA paper, 25 marks have been allocated. Right. ACCA final. Right. Right. The same type of question will be coming. Right. But then it's on case study will be longer than this. Right. Clear? Yeah. Right. So you can upload your answer LMS. So I will review the answers and I will upload the best answer to LMS. So then you can prepare that answer. Okay. Right. Right. All right. Any questions? Any questions? No. No questions. Great. So moving on to today's discussion. Right. Yes, any questions? Okay. Oh, again, the paper again, something, it's a question, there is one case study, right? Structure again, become structure coming in. Patai, sorry, question has the clear, right? The regular question is set. So the Pahai, Hatai, I don't know. Pahai person, Pahai, 10% Hatai, 100% marks. The 20 mark questions are there, 6 questions are there. So you can choose 5 questions. Right? So 3 questions is coming from this one. What do you call it? Governance part. Right. So 1 question is coming from ethics, and 2 questions are coming from the risk management. Right. That's how it is. I will share the past views as well. There are 6 past views. Recently also there. Right. I will share the past views. So then you can understand. So previous public past views actually prepared by Dr. Chaduri. So previously, the first 3 questions. So my approach is because of that, right? So she has some direct questions. I will upload both the right both. But when based on risk management, all the questions are prepared by me. I have done this subject with the Dr. Chaduri. Then she moved. Right. So now coming from the board committees, right? So our discussion on the board, right? If you can remember, we have discussed about the corporate governance framework. So at that framework, we have discussed the board, right? So under the board, right? So we have discussed about the board memberships, board role. So now we are coming to the board committees, right? Board committees. So within the board, we have a few committees for different purposes. Right? What are the committees we are having in the board? And the examples. Yes. The audit committee is the most popular. Yes. Regulation committee. Audit committee, regulation committee, yes. Any other committees? Risk management committee. Yes. Good. Yes. What are the committees we are having in the board? Audit committee, regulation committee, risk management committee. Yeah. Employee affairs. And this regulatory committee. That's the one most important committee.
Related
Yeah.
related party. Related party.
Yeah, related party. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Nomination too. Right. So mainly when it comes to the generally we are having the nomination committee, audit committee, and the what do you call the remuneration committee, nomination committee, and audit. Right. So these three committees are there. Mainly when it comes to PLC performance. Because we need to have otherwise we can't list in the development structure. These three committees need to be there. But most of the other committees like related party committees are having for the PLCs like conglomerates, right? So mother companies are having a related party committee. Right? And also some companies can have the grievance handling committee like risk management committee. So mainly nowadays the companies are having the risk management committee other than the audit committee. The audit committee focus is different and the risk management focus is different. Right? So those are the two committees we have. But here today we are discussing few main committees, not all. The main committees which we need to have in a board. Right? So many companies operate a series of boards, subcommittees responsible for supervising specific aspects of the governance. Why we need to have committees? I have the committees in එක එක aspect එක ගැන අපේ අවධානය වැඩිපුර දෙන්නේ. බෝඩ් එක විදිහට ඉන්නවා. ඊට අමතරව ඒකට subcommittees අපි දාගන්නවා. මොකද අපිට එක එක company එකේ තියෙන එක එක වැදගත් තැන් වල පොඩ්ඩක් අවධානය බලන්න ඕනේ. Right? Operation of a committee system does not observe the main board of its responsibilities for the areas covered by the board committees. However, good use of committees seems to have had a positive effect on the governance of many companies. It's found evidence that committees had given assurance that important board duties were being discharged rigorously. Right. So Hitch means the Hitch report. We will discuss that before. And in the next weeks, right? In the Hitch report, they have found that committees had given assurance that important board duties were being discharged rigorously, right? So because we are having a committees, they are giving some assurance to the board, right? Regarding actually, we are having the committee for what? To perform the governance work, which is allocated to the board, right? So since we are having the board committees, so that means they are making sure that these aspects are covered up, right? The main board committees are, right? The nomination committee, definitely we need to have a nomination committee in the board, right? Nomination committee අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම තියෙන්න ඕනේ, right? A nomination committee අනිවාර්යයෙන් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. සාමාන්‍ය PLC company එකට definitely we need to have a nomination committee. Why? Sorry. If there is a nomination committee, what will happen? So, board members can decide their own salaries. Right? Board members can decide their own salaries. Right? So if you are having a nominated board, that means more executive members are there, so they can decide their remunerations. It's reaching the corporate governance instructions. Right? So therefore we need to have nomination committee, right? Sorry, the nomination committee we are having nominations. Right? Remuneration committee, we are nominating remuneration. Nomination committee, what we are doing is we are nominating the people to the positions. Right? And Lanka working, right? Nomination committee can not who is without time like really around the without secretary. So it should be coming through the nomination committee. Right? So if there is a nomination, what will happen? The corporate governance principles are reaching. Right. It's a big corporate governance issue. Right. So nomination committee responsible for recommending the appointment of new directors to the board. So not only the board, right? Basically the higher management also decided by the nomination committee. Right. For example, the CEO suggesting some people to the managerial levels. So he has to put it to the nomination committee and get the approval from the nomination committee. Right, in the companies. So directors, definitely you need to go to the nomination committee. Right. So the process will be nomination committee should be picked important people, right? So they have to put it to the annual general meeting. Right. To appoint through the shareholders. Right. So we have discussed the three ways how we are appointing the directors, if you can remember. Right. By regulatory, by shareholders. Right. Right. So audit committee, right? The most important committee. This is the most important committee, the audit committee, responsible for liaising with the external audit, supervising internal audit, and reviewing the annual accounts and the internal controls. Right. So definitely we need to have a audit committee. Otherwise, what will happen? Otherwise, what will happen? So what is the main role of the committee? Audit committee main role. Audit committee main role එක තමයි. ඇත්තම නිකන් අපි ජෙනරල් ඩිස්කෂන් එක ගත්තොත් එහෙනම් ඔඩිට් කමිටුවේ මේන් රෝල් එක තමයි කම්පැනි එක පුළුවන් තරම් බැලන්ස් කරගෙන යන්නේ. right? කම්පැනි එක බැලන්ස් කරගෙන යනවා කියන්නේ ඉන්වෙස්ටර්ස් වල ප්‍රොටෙක්ට් කරගෙන යන්නේ. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ඔඩිට් හැම කම්පැනි එකකම ඔඩිට් කමිටු එකේ ගොඩක් වෙලාවල කරන්නේ එක්ස්ටර්නල් ඔඩිටර්ස් වත් එක්ක මීටින් දාගන්නවා. right? එක්ස්ටර්නල් ඔඩිටර්ස් වත් එක්ක මීටින් දාගන්න එක තමයි ඒක අවුරුද්දේ වැඩි පාරක් පාලනය කරන්නේ. They go to the external auditors or balance there. So as we discussed in the corporate governance framework, if you can remember, external auditors are reported to, directly reported to shareholders. Because they are independent. But before they are going to their shareholders, they are having some sort of discussion with the audit company. ඔගොල්ලෝ audit කරලා තියෙනවා experience ඇති. audit committee වල ගිහලා තියෙනවා experience ඇති. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ මොනවා හරි දෙයක් හොයාගත්තොත් difference එකක් හොයාගත්තොත් material statement එකක් හොයාගත්තොත් so you are reporting that. Then that material statement firstly we are bringing to the audit committee and we are discussing. We are presenting the audit committee. Right? We are presenting the audit committee. This kind of things are happening. Right? Right. So when you have picked up any control deficiencies, the manager not sign this check, right? So you are putting into the audit committee. So then audit committee will tell, we will take action. So don't report to the shareholders. So as auditor, then we are thinking whether they have actually corrected. So then we are not report to the shareholders. Because when you are going to report the shareholders, then matter you are. Very well, auditor shareholders not make a report to the company on. If you are going for audit, right? Even the CEO also respecting you. Why? Because of that. Because if you are issuing a wrong opinion, that means, let's say, qualified opinion. Right? Qualified opinion. That means you are saying the financial statements are not good. Basically. So what will happen? Definitely people will withdraw money and potential investors are not investing in your company. So if you don't have money, what will happen to the company? It's a no-go company. So what will happen then, boys? They don't have choice there. They don't buy auditor. That's how you got the idea about that. See you. How their experience, how is that their experience on one thing I buy? What do you need? Yellow pass by number. Again. So audit is like that kind of power. So what? Why we need to have audit committee? To ensure that, right, the independence is there. Right? Because if the external auditors are going directly to the board and presenting the board, sometimes the independent outcome will not come. So in the audit committee, we are having the independent directors. So if you want to list it in the Colombo Stock Exchange, you need to definitely have an audit committee in your board. As not this is must. Right. Then the remuneration committee, responsible for advising on executive director's remuneration policy and the specific packages for each director. Right. So otherwise, what will happen? If there's a no remuneration committee, the board is the board can manage the company. So what they can do? They can decide their own salaries, on remuneration, on packages. Right. Board they, you know, support the V8 again, these over the 250, part of 250 again. So they can decide. Right. There's no regulation. So it's reaching the corporate governance. So therefore, we need to have a regulation to decide the salaries of the directors. Right. And the risk committee, right? So these days nowadays we are actually dealing with risks, right? So mostly the cybersecurity risk. But definitely companies need to have a risk committee, right? The risk management committee, we can say. Responsible for overseeing the organizational risk response and managerial strategies. So what kind of risk we are having, what kind of response we are having, what kind of managerial strategies we are having. අපි කොහොමද risk එක identify කරලා තියෙන්නේ මොනවද අපිට company එකේ තියෙන risk එක ඒ risk එකට අපි කොහොමද response කරන්නේ right ඔයගොල්ලෝ කිව්වා දැන් ගොඩක් investors බලන්නේ financial statements වලලා මේ risk management policy එක වුණා right risk management policy because I'm investing to the future right? I'm not looking at the historical things already to ask. The profit is a kind of historical. Right. So today profit sometimes after one day it will become loss. Right. So we can't predict the volatility is there. Right. So therefore we need to definitely have this management committee. Right. The Higgs report recommend that no one individual should serve on all committees. Very important. Right. Most reports recommend that the committee should be staffed by non-executive directors and preferred independent non-executive directors. Right. So since the corporate governance is not a legal thing, right? We are following the reports. Right? Different reports are there for the corporate governance initiatives. Right. So one report is suggesting that when committees were එකම එක්කෙනා ඉන්න බෑ හැම කමිටි එකක්. එහෙනම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඕල් කමිටිස් වල එකම දැන් ඉන්නවා නොමිනේෂන් කමිටි ඉන්නවා ප්‍රකාශ ඉන්නවා ඔඩිට් කමිටි ප්‍රකාශ. right remuneration committee එකක්. So what will happen? Sometimes these work are overlapping. Right? And audit committee report කරනවා directors ලගේ remuneration වැඩි. right? directors are මේ විදිහට ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. Then the best way is no one individual should serve on all committees, right? And also we need to have a non-executive director. That is the preferable group. Non-executive directors. So if you can have independent non-executive directors. That's the best. Independent non-executive directors. And you have both. Why? Independent non-executive means they are not involved in the operations. They are independent. So we have discussed non-executive can be divided into two, independent and right. So dependent non-executive directors mean who? They are involved in specific activities of the business. Even though they are non-executive, they are not involved in the day-to-day activities, but some specific activities they are involved. So they are having kind of the independence is not there. So here we need to have purely independent non-executive directors as the members. Because we need to ensure that the independence is there. Right. අපිට මේක bias නැති කරන්න ඕන මේ committees එක. right ඒ නිසා තමයි අපි suggest කරන්නේ independent non-executive directors ලා ඉන්නවා නම් හොඳයි. right. So we are moving on to the nomination committee. Right. Nomination committee. So these are the role and function of nomination committee. So, in order to ensure that the balance of the board is maintained, the corporate governance code recommends that the board set up a nomination committee made up only or mainly of independent non-executive directors to oversee the process for the board appointments and make recommendations to the board. Right. So that is the role, to oversee the process for the board appointments and make recommendation to the board. Process එක review කරන එකයි. Right. Recommendations board එකට pass කරන එකයි තමයි nomination committee work. Right? Nomination committee work. Right? So the director can go the background. How we are going to appoint the directors? What are the dates? We can follow. Can you remember? When you are appointing the director, sorry, director, 3 days. Yeah, appointment of director. Can you remember? Voting. One is chairman voting. Yeah. Two are chairman voting. Yeah. The next one. By authority. Can you remember? By authority, we are appointing the director. Sometimes. Right. Then the government. Srilanka Airlines, something directors of authority in office. President was on the board at the chairman and social partner. By authority. If there's a certain situation that until the annual general meeting comes, as a director, you can appoint a director. As a so kind of if you have, let's say, on QA Janadipati, yeah, or the RPM also, as you know, the DBPS and all the opinion, the annual general meeting again, make run so directors take a constitution with the that should be there in the constitution. Then you can appoint a kind of acting director until that position is confirmed through the annual general meeting. Right. So those are the 3 ways we can appoint a director. Yeah, right. So here what we are doing, oversee the process. We process the oversee the right. Process the board appointments and make recommendation to the board. What do you mean by recommendation? Nominating the names to the board. Right. So before going to the annual general meeting, so these nominations should be evaluated by the nomination committee, and that should be presented to the board. Then only board will take it to the annual general meeting. So that's how the process is going. Right. So you, as a nomination committee, you need to oversee the process. Process so names recommend. Right. The nomination committee needs to consider the balance between the executive and the independent non-executive directors when you are nominating the people. Right. The skills, knowledge, and experience possessed by the current board. Right. The need for continuity and succession plan. So what kind of succession plan we are having? The desirable size of the board. Right. So we have discussed how we are designing the size. What are the factors we need to consider? Right. The need to attract board members from diversity of backgrounds. Right. So these factors you need to consider. Right. So this is coming like a question, right? Right. Then the examiner asks, what kind of a consideration that nomination committee can have when they are nominating people to the board? Right. 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 So what they have to look at, they need to look at the balance. They need to look at the knowledge and skills. They need to look at the success of plans, how they are continuing their director post. And the size, what kind of size? We need to have, for example, for a big company, we can have a large number of directors. For a small company, we can have a small number of directors. Right. And the diversity, different professional diversity and the knowledge and the experience diversity and gender diversity. Right. So likewise, we can have a different diversity. So there's a diversity is there. Right. Then nomination committee should ensure that appointments to the board are made using objective criteria. However, the criteria should not be so restrictive that it limits too greatly the number of candidates. Right. What again? Davi, Samani nomination committee, nomination committee, there are 5 criteria. The criteria is so board again, not which secretary for the other. Right. Diversity of ladies like 40%, gender 60%. I say, I got the professional background අපි lawyers like දෙන්නෙක් ඉන්නෝනේ chartered accountant boss දෙනෙක් ඉන්නෝ likewise we are kind of a criteria when you are appointing the people to the when you are designing the people to the board to the nomination අපි අපි මේකට stick වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ දැන් අපිට පුළුවන් lawyers දෙන්නෙක් විතර ගන්න අපි තව lawyer කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා හොඳයි ඒක අපිට පුළුවන් nomination committee එකක් කරනවා right එයා හොඳ board එකට even though they are having right you get about two only two right so that is a kind of a big concern objective criteria are there but the criteria should not be restrictive that is limit to greatly the number of candidates right අපි හැම වෙලේම කම්පැනි එකක් විතර මොකක්ද try කරන්නේ හොඳම directors අපේ කම්පැනි එක right the best people to our company ඒකයි directors වල ලොකු salaries දෙන්නේ directors වල ගොඩක් ලොකු salaries දෙන්නේ අපිට ඕනේ හොඳම feedback අපේ company එකට මොකද මේගොල්ලෝ තමයි decisions ගන්න company so as an investor right as an investor I would like to have the best people in our board right එතකොට අපි හැම වෙලේම pool එක expand කරගන්න පුළුවන් තමයි expand කරගන්න තරම් තරමට තමයි අපේ best person කෙනෙක් ගන්න right board system දැන් ගත්තොත් ශ්‍රී ලංකා ක්‍රිකට් ටීම් එකද right ඉස්සෙල්ලා කොළඹ කට්ටිය ආනන්ද ගාලන්ත ශ්‍රී ලංකා ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටීම් ඒක පොඩි expand then Jack Howell then expand or best team එක හැදෙන්නේ right දැන් වෙනම කතාවක් best team එක නැති එක ඒක වෙනම කතාවක් කරන්නේ more than cricketers was fun. Sally is already favorite study. So they will go Sally has not. But the running is out the course. So they need to have a kind of training. No, no. Now one day match will get those. Match fee will cut lakhs one of them. Basically, they get those. Actually, kita ya, iya kita tu, kita kena masuk. Kita sebenarnya kita series se kita rating gana. Kita betul ada contract kan? Contract kita mana mau? Kita players lah categorize kalau dia contract. Kita player. Yang ada fix salary kan bukti ya. Yang lain kan baca kan dia udah udah gitu. Kalau contract fee kan, kalau bilang kan board itu hari kita tinggi. Tiga kan. Kebanyakan kan dia nak pun contract fee tak. Oh dah, ini kita nak ini salary kan? Salary itu mana tahu? Kalau orang buat apa nak sekolah juga kan? Ini lagi orang main pun. Kalau kau ada, tiga training kan itu mana ada? Bila kita board ini, awal dah awal ni bila kita board. Lanka කියන සල්ලි වැඩි පස් මන්ද මහ බැංකුවකට තමයි සල්ලි වෙන්නේ. ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ පොත්. සීරියස්. ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ පොත් එක තමයි ලංකාවේ වැඩිම ඩොලර් තියෙන්නේ. ඩොලර් amount එකක් තියෙන ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ පොත්. ඒක කවුරුත් දාලා නැත්තේ. මට දෙන්නේ නැත්te ඒකයි. ගවර්න්මන්ට් එක ගන්න කියාවේ ගන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ. ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ පොත් එක තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ ගන්න දුන්නා හොඳයි. boleh apa yang lain buat kan klub dia kan tadi tiga tega ni tu sampai kalau apa value right then the audit committee right so what is the roles. The role and function of audit committee and audit committee of independent non-executive directors should work with the external audit, supervising internal audit, and review the annual accounts and internal reports. Right. So So we have discussed under the board responsibilities, right? So board chairman needs to sign the annual reports or the annual accounts, right? So that reviewing part is done by the audit committee. And also they are having some discussion with the external auditors, and also they are supervising the internal audit, right? Right. Supervising internal audit and reviewing the annual accounts, and also they are looking at the internal controls as well, right? So that is why this audit committee is very important. And the audit committee definitely should be independent. Right? Audit committee अनिवार्य independent vendor. That's the right. Therefore, right. Audit committee are now compulsory for companies trading on many stock exchange. This is compulsory. Why? To make sure the investors are protected. So what is the one of the objective of the CST? Colombo stock exchange? Protect your investors. But in Sri Lanka, we don't have the holding the most number of shares in the most of the companies. They can play with the share. Right. They can play with the share. Share marketing सामान्य market नोट आई थी बुक करो दिन देख domination point up to दिन देख तुम देख एक और लोग प्ले करा तो कैसे एक और लोग क्या मिला कि शेयर चालू करते सब मिला शेयर प्ले करो तो share price is volatile. So how will the share price change? Supply and demand. That's the thing. දැන් මට තියෙනවා 150කට ෂෙයා මාකට් එකේ සල්ලි. බලන්න ස්ටොක් එක්ස්චේන්ජ් එකේ අයිතියක් තියෙනවා නේද කම්පැනිස්. මට මොකද කරන්නේ? මට ඕන වෙලාවක විකුණන්න පුළුවන් මට ඕන වෙලාවක ගන්න. ඒකේ මට පුළුවන් චෙක් ෆ්ලක්චුවේට් කරන්න. දැන් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපිට සල්ලි නැති වුණාම නැති වෙ ඉති තමයි අමාරු. ඔයාලට සල්ලි ගොඩක් තියෙද්දි. right? ඔයාලට කවදාවත් ඔයාගේ සල්ලි යූස් කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. ඔයාලට සල්ලි ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. Elon Musk याके एक स्ट्रेटजी का क्या करनी right या करने बैंक लोन से लिंदो में याके बिजनेस फंड कर right या वो करने बैंक लोन से याके शेयर्स देना बैंक के बाकी शेयर्स देना कंपनी के बिना में शेयर्स की कर मैं शेयर्स तो मत देना बैंक लोन इधर से ये साल लिंदो में या बिजनेस का ये हर साल पंप करना right ඔගලොන්ට යම් කිසි ලෙවල් එකකින් පස්සේ සල්ලි ආවට පස්සේ ඔයාලට පුළුවන් අනිත් කට්ටියගේ සල්ලි වලින් ඔයාලට හම්බ කරගන්න. යම් කිසි සිකියුර් ලෙවල් එකට ආවට පස්සේ ඔයාලට පුළුවන් අනිත් මිනිස්සුන්ගේ සල්ලි අරගෙන ඒකෙන් හම්බ කරගන්න. එලොක් පස්කන් යාගේ ෂෙයාර්ස් දානවා බැංක් එකට තියාගන්න කියනවා මේ ටික සිකියුරිටි එකක් විදිහට. මට මෙච්චර ගන්නක් දෙන්න. මේ වගේ ෂෙයාර්ස්. ඒ සල්ලි වලින් තමයි යා बिजनेस करना तो एक दिन तो भाई बिजनेस करने एक दिन तो भाई लाइक कोलंबो स्टॉक एक्सचेंज करते ये तो की बने कि ना एक काटने का मिला आणि काटने के साले निकाल एक आरे ना बिजनेस से करो कोलंबो स्टॉक एक्सचेंज so you can also invest in the Colombo stock exchange. I have told you that. Right. So audit committee should be there. Why? We need to ensure that, right, the independence is there and the assets of the investors are protected. Right? In order to be effective, the audit committee has to be well staffed. The UK Smith report recommends that the audit committee should consist entirely of independent non-executive directors, excluding the chairman, and should include at least one member with a significant and recent financial experience. Composition account audit committee. Audit committee composition account independent non-executive directors government. Right? It should be independent non-executive directors, and also the board we need to have at least one expert in the finance field or the accounting field. The audit committee can go there. non-dependent එකවල ඒක independent non-executive directors ලා ඉන්නවා Google එකකට right lawyers ලා ඉන්නවා right teachers ලා ඉන්නවා කවුරු below that දන්නේ කට්ටිය ගුරු විද්‍යාව හරිද right finance knowledge එකක් තියෙන එක්කෙනෙක් හරි ඉන්න ඕනනේ right right in order to right so mainly some of the audit services in Sri Lanka most of the members are mainly chartered accountants right so definitely we need to have a chartered accountant in the board right right so now the number is limiting right you can go to the audit committee if you have become a chartered accountant right? Only 8,000 chartered members are there in Sri Lanka 8,000 means from the 1958 to now right so from that 8,000 I think at least 4,000 died 4,000 or 3,000 and නැරලා තියෙනවා. ඒකේන 3,000 2,000 විතර රටේ ඉන්නේ. 3,000 විතර රටේ ඉන්නවා. 6,000 2,000 1,500ක වෙනවා ලංකාවේ. 1,500 capable කට්ටිය ඉන්නේ මොකද 500කට අතලු. Right. Even though you are chartered accountant, you will not be the best one. Chartered accountant කරනවා කියලා මේ හොඳට වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Even the chartered accountant I know, they are getting only 50,000 credits. Right. The fee. Because they don't have the skills. Right. Chartered accountant කියලා උනා කියලා හැමදේම හරියන්නේ. chartered accountant වෙන්න ඕන. ඒ වැදගත් පොකුත් නැහැ. තමයි. පුළුවන් තරම් try කරන්න chartered උත් ඉවර කරගන්න. chartered accountant වෙන්න. So it will open up the various fields like you can get the extension for the other institutions, right? CPA you can get, right? Once you are getting CPA, you can apply for the directly apply for the Australia for the skill migration, right? So සල්ලි දෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. PPM ජීවර කරනවා නම් ගෙලින් යන්න පුළුවන් ඔස්ට්‍රේලියාවට. අපේ ගොඩක් යාළුවෝ ඉන්නේ ඔක්කොම දැන් වීසා දාගන්න එන වෙලාව අමාරුයි. හරි. ලංකාව වල ගියන් ගියාම වීසා එක ගන්න ගියාම හරියන්නේ. ඔස්ට්‍රේලියා යන්න UK යන්න දැන් කොහොමද බෑ. So there's a white paper is coming up. So UK. I think most of you are targeting to abroad. ලංකාවේ කාර එමෙන්නේ. ලංකාව තරගේ තරක් නැහැ. ඒක ලංකාව තමයි best place එක. ඔය ඉතින් කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. ලංකාව ජීවත් වෙන්න බෑනේ. දැන් ඔඩිට් කරලා වැඩි ගියොත් එම ඕගොල්ලන්ට ඕපන් අප් වෙනවා ලැබෙන්නේ. මම ඒකයි හැමෝටම කියන්නේ පුළුවන් තරම් ට්‍රේනින් ඉන්න කාලේ ඔඩිට් ෆර්ම්ස් යන්න. ඒ නපුවාට අනික් එක්ස්ටර්නල් වලට එන්න කලින් පුළුවන් ඔඩිට් ෆර්ම්ස් එක. ඊළඟ ඒ ඇමරිකාවට ඕපන් අප් කරා. ඒ ජීවිතේ එම වලට සාමාන්‍යයෙන් රටවල් 140ක 50කට විතර ඇබලින්ස් ඕපන්. ඔය ජීවිතේ හැමරටම තියෙනවා. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අවුරුදු 30ක් නැති අනුගානේ ලක්ෂ 30ක් 40ක් ලක්ෂ 30ක් ගන්නවා පිටරට යනවා. නැත්නම් අපි පිටරට වලට අනුගානේ ලක්ෂ 30ක් ගන්නවා. ඒක නැත්නම් යන්නේ කොයි? ඒ දුබායි වගේ ඉක්ම සාන පුළුවන් ලක්ෂ 30ක්. මම එක්සැම්පල් එකක් කියන්න ඕනේ. මොටිවේට් වෙන්න ඕනේ. මාත් එක්ක පිට එකේ වැඩ කරලා ගාමේ. Yeah, district president. The district president of the district. Commerce team. Now the time. Yapura accountant. So the audit එක ආවම පස්සේ මාත් ඒක කරගෙන. යලා ඉංග්‍රීසි වල. කැම්පස් එකේ උත් කරලා නැහැ. කැම්පස් වල ආරම්භ කරලා ඒකට ගිහිල්ලා කම්පිකව කොල්ලේ තොර මේක දැම්මට පස්සේ ඔය කැම්පස් වල යුනිවර්සිටිස් වල තියෙනවා වෙයි කොලේජ් එක තියෙනවා ඒ කියන්නේ මොලේ වැඩ කරනවනේ ඒ පිටි එකට ආවට පස්සේ වර්ක් කරනවා මාර වර්ක් හරියට වැඩේ නියමටම කරනවා පස්සේ අම්මලා දාලා ඩිවෝස්
KPMG adalah awak nak kata apa boleh pandai itu, dia kan dia pandai cari pasal cara dengan orang telah dia competition dengan kata udah kita apa saya sama seperti tahu lagi kan dia seperti itu saya tahu ini orang dia tu orang baru tamai kan itu asalnya KPMG adalah yang tahu open mana avenues Dubai kalau dia open Australia itu ya Dubai itu lagi English itu bad हमारे मिला के कॉल जाती है लेकिन हमारा यूट्यूब को बहुत ही दायरा थी और एक दफा बना तो आई एम वेरी हैप्पी राइट आई एम हैप्पी दैट्स हाउ पीपल आर getting through you can go that right you can complete the starter complete करना तो that means open degree का कितना degree का मतलब degree nanti kau nama orang degree sih elok pas mana ada degree sih kan future mind sih mana soalnya ikut ini apa dah kau sedar no degree gila baru degree sih kan apa so you need to develop the skill and the professional qualifications both along with the degree should be there because it's academic qualification it's an invitation to your job professional qualification would be kind of increasing the professional path to open up some avenues. So both needs to be there. Orang tak advising kerakan. So ada ini. Kalau abis jiwa kita sama nak tahu ni macam mana awak sihat. Bisa kata ya sih, bukan tahu bisa kalau hari ini jiwa. Only 2 years. Because we are eating both two. We are eating fried rice. Right? So it's definitely only 20 years. Yeah. So you enjoy your life. It was a little long. Enjoy your life. That's 20 years already. 20 years old plan है हमारा. वो खाते करा. Very fun. 20 years हो गया तो मत दिए Right. So I'm coming to the audit committee because I feel like you are bored, right? That's fine. So, an audit committee of independent non-executive directors should go with the external auditor and supervise internal auditors. And here, you need to have an independent non-executive directors, right? And also have significant and recent financial experience. Very important. Significant and recent, right? Some of your members. There are chartered accountants are there, but they don't have the recent knowledge. Even though they are chartered accountants, once you get the qualification, you will become a chartered accountant forever. Right? Some of they don't know about the new amendments. For example, now SLFRS 80 is coming up instead of LKS. SLFRS 80 replacing LKS. Don't know. LKS 1. LKS 1 is replacing the SLFRS 80. Right? SLFRS 80 plus standard. Right? If the standard don't know what you have. So you need to know new trends. As management people, you need to know the account. New changes in the account. Like before coming to, because from 2027 onwards, we have to go with SLFR 80. Right. So it's allowed to early adapt now. So sometimes early adapt to the SLFR 80. The Singapore court suggests that at least 2 members should have accounting or related financial management expertise or experience, right, in the audit committee. So generally, when you are appointing the people to the audit committee, at least 1 or 2 members need to have kind of financial or accounting knowledge. Because you are reviewing the external auditors' work, the controls, and the financial accounts. Right. Therefore, you need to have expertise in the audit committee. The Lanka got the folk committee. Folk. So what's the difference between the folk and folk? What is it? Folk. Folk means. So there are two committees, right? The same as these committees, right? So the parliament is a board. So there are some committees, folk and folk. Right. In that committee, who are there? Expertise, Mervyn Silva. Right. In previous committees, now somewhat good, right? In that now we are having people. Nahan Talakiyavani. Job. I think it's good, but they don't have the knowledge, I think, right? To at least review the financial accounts. Right. So most of the problems are happening because of the financial account and the controls. Make a cycle, right? Cannot put case with the internal control students. Right. Internal control are in physical energy in the way, psychical energy in the way, chemical controls the other. When they right, control overcome cannot work in. Right. Right. So therefore, so you need to have a group members. At least you need to have a people who is having a kind of accounting background. The main duties of audit committee, the first one is review of financial statement and control system. The committee should review both the quarterly and interim if published and annual reports. Right. So some companies are publishing the interim annual reports as well. So if you are going to publish that, it should be reviewed by the audit committee. Right. Right. This should involve assessment of judgments made about the overall appearance and presentation of the accounts, key accounting policies and major areas of judgment. Right. So when you are doing the audit, we are taking some judgments, judgmental decisions. Right. Right. What we call it as judgments in accounting. Judgments will look at the accounting. Accounting judgments should be done. They are not using any judgments. No. When you are preparing the account, what are judgments you are using? Yes. What do you call that? Judgments? Provisions. Provision is one example. Right. Yes, what are judgments? Yeah, you can count. You call it as estimates. Yes, correct. Estimates. Right. We are using different estimates. Right. One estimate. Example. Depreciation. Estimate क्या होगा? मैं पूरा कर दो सैलरी का मैं पूरा डिप्रिशिएट करा दे सीए 20 से करा बेस होता है इसकी मैं बताऊं और नहीं लगा तो ट्यूशन क्लास है का साथ एक बार ट्यूशन क्लास है कर ये पूरा डिप्रिशिएट करा नहीं थोड़ा अड़ुगा सीए लो पहाड़ा that is it's a judgment right so that judgment should be reviewed by the audit committee whether that judgment is correct. It's accurate. Right. So basically the accounting estimates we are looking at. Right? And appearance. Right? So you need to look at the appearance. Right? Right? So if you don't know about the SLFRS 18 after 2020, right? You can't work as an audit committee member. Right? SLFRS 18 will be right? Abhi දැන් හදන්නේ income statement එක දෙනවා. Income statement එක ඒකේ major change එකක් තමයි income statement එක අපි කැලේ මොකද link කරන්නේ. Income statement. Right? What are the three categories? In cash flow statement we have three categories. What are the categories? Financing activities, investing activities, and operational activities. So likewise in the P&L also. So we need to separate these three. There is some expenses. Why? What will happen with that? I am bigger. I am presentation again as well. අයියා කරා. මොනකට වෙන් කරලා පෙන්නන්නේ? Decision making basically. එතකොට ඉන්වෙස්ටර් ගන්නවා වගකම් පියනක තියා they have do the expense for the this kind of investors. These are the investment activities. They are the expenses. These are the finances. The separation is there. So now the presentation is more accurate. People can take good decisions. That's one change. And also the second change is they are looking at the management performance indicators. So you have to review that in the accounts. So now we can't see the management performance indicators. That is internal. So with the SLFR taking what happened is management accounting teams are popping up to the standards. Management accounting team would internal people they are taking the management accounting to take the decisions internally. Right? In the SLFR side, those management sort of information should be revealed to the annual report. So then decision makers can take accurate decisions. So those are the few changes. So if you don't have that knowledge, right? So what will happen? You can't work as a audit committee because we need to look at the appearance and the presentation of the accounts. How we are going to present it, right? Key accounting policies. What do you mean by policies? What are the examples for the policies? I'm asking this because in the exam you have rights. Because not only the governance knowledge, but also the accounting knowledge you need to have. In the answer is not what is it? What are the examples for the policies? Policies. Policies. Not the policies. You are doing accounting here, no? Financial accounting there. Financial accounting there. Yeah, hello, here. So what is the meaning of policies? Any examples? Policies. You know, good. At least one is there. Yes. Usually, policy can be yeah. But the best example. So the solution also we have to select. That is right. 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 60 days already done. My 90 days already done. Picture around winter. So if I over the bad debt before them, I'm one aging. So based on the aging only, we are proposing the what do you call the contract. Right. But with the IFRS 9, what will happen? We need to book at the first date. We need to do the ECL calculation. Expected credit loss. Right. So different approaches are there. So you need to know these things. So if you know the IFRS 9 correctly, that standard is enough to earn money. Right. Standard that is salary. Right. So you can do the consultation. And IFRS 17 is a new trend for the insurance companies. Still, the Sri Lankan insurance companies are suffering to adopt the IFRS 17 because they don't know. So you should have the expert knowledge for that. Definitely, you can earn so much of money. So with the new standard coming up, audit firms are earning so much of money. Because the companies don't know how to adapt. Company එකක් දන්නේ adapt කරනවා නිකේ companies බලන audit committee එක use කරගෙන මේක කරන්නේ. ඒක අවුලන්නේ. ඒ audit committee audit එකෙන් මේ අපි මොනවා රැවුලද දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ මේකලුත් මේක මෙහෙම කරන්නේ කියන්නේ. ඒසා companies ගොඩක් audit companies වලටම දෙනවා. policy standard එක how to implement කරන්න. ඒකට ඒගොල්ලෝ suggestions කොහොමද කරන්නේ? Advice. So these knowledge needs to there accounting policies and major areas of judgments. So as well as reviewing the accounts, the committee's review should cover the management control system. which includes budgetary systems and performance measurement system. This involves considering performance indicators and information systems that allow monitoring of the most significant business and financial risks. The system should also highlight developments that may require action, for example, large variances, and communicate these to the right people. Right? So when it comes to the management and the the company's operation controls, right? So that also reviewed by the audit committee. So if there is any kind of variance with the actual one and the budgetary one, right? So you need to, an audit committee, you need to inform it to the board. Through the board, you need to inform it to the right people to take the action. Right? So that is what under review of finance statement we need to do. Then second work that audit committee have is to review the controls, internal controls we have. Right? The audit committee should play a significant role in reviewing the internal controls. Committee members can use their own experience to monitor continually the adequacy of the internal control system in mitigating the risk, focusing particularly on the control environment, management attitudes towards controls, and overall internal controls. What that means? It's very important. So when it comes to audit committee, right, the first thing when it comes to the internal control review is you need to look at the culture of your company. So what kind of internal control culture you have? Not only the internal control, but also we need to look at the environment. Right? Now, only company की culture के बात बोला. उदाहरण के लिए उसको हम हो गया ना. Right? So you need to look at the control environment and also management attitudes. Whether the management is working according to the internal control established. The internal control, you know, have a current. Other document का तो no, मेरे current नहीं है, management एक आप करते. So they don't have a different attitude, right? Not only the kind of physical thing, but also attitudes. The environment you need to review, and also you need to review the physical things also. But more importantly, what you have to look at is control environment and the management attitudes towards the controls, right? And overall internal controls. Physically, you need to check the internal controls, right? Attitude development control සම්බන්ධව. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අපිට කොච්චර controls තියෙනවද? Financial regulations වලට basic controls තියෙනවා. මම කලින් කියලා දුන්නා. හැබැයි අපි එකක්වත් කරන්නේ. Sri Lanka government is the best example for the what do you call the governance, right? Because they are not following the governance. Like even the regulations are there, but they are not following. Right? So as an auditor, what you do that's what the co-op committee is doing. Right? Co-op committee that is not compulsory. Right? ඊට හැම කම්පැනියක්ම එකක්වත් හොඳ නැහැ. ඔක්කොම මොනවා හරි කරලා. ඔක්කොම internal control issues. ඔයාලා බලුවොත්. දැන් අරන් බලන්න. ඒකෙන් තමයි ඉගෙන ගන්න ඕන. ඔක්කොම internal control issues. They are the internal control, but they are not following. The audit committee reviews should cover legal compliance and ethics. For example, listing rules and environmental legislation. Committee members should check that there are systems in place to promote the compliance. They should review reports on the operation of the code of conduct and investigate the violences. Right? So legal compliance and ethics should be reviewed. Right? The company list the Colombo stock exchange. So we need to look at whether we are following it. So that's a kind of a role of the audit committee. So whether we are paying the appropriate tax to the government, whether we are following the environmental regulations, we have to do. We have to follow. Right. So those regulatory things, the legal compliance needs to check by the audit committee, review by the audit committee, whether it's actually followed. And also the ethics of the people. Right? Ethics of the people. Right? For example, when you are having an audit, right? One consideration is the scope limitation. Right? Scope limitation is there. Mainly. And audit committee වලට ගොඩක් වෙන complaint එක තමයි scope limitation. Management එක අපිට මේ document එක දෙන්නේ. Right? Auditor the report කරනවා we are going to give a what opinion? If it is a scope of limitation, what is the opinion we are going to give as auditors? What's the opinion? If the scope is limited. Then maybe මොකක්ද කියන්නේ මම යා හොඳයි තරගයි කියලා කියන්න පුතන්නේ. මම කොහොමද කියන්නේ මම ඔයාගෙන හොයලා එවිඩන්ස් ප්‍රස් කරගන්න. ඒතර එවිඩන්ස් ගන්න කියන්නත් තමයි. ඔයාගෙන හොයනකොට කියන්නේ. මොකද මම ඒතකොට කිසිම මතයක් ප්‍රකාශ කරන්නේ නැහැ. Disclaimer of opinion. If there is scope of limitation. Right, scope limitation. So we are not providing any opinion. We call that disclaimer of opinion. Right. So when there's a scope limitation is there, right? So that should be reported to the audit committee. Right. Then audit committee asks management to sometimes they will ask management to give the documents. Right. If it is correct, statement by the auditor. Samalat auditors तक इन्हें और accept कर करेगा उसका क्या? तो वह audit committee balance करता हूँ ये मैं किला. මේක මෙහෙම අපිට දෙන්න දියන්නේ නැහැ. මෙන්න මෙහෙම legal issue එකක් තියෙන නිසා තමයි දෙන්න බැහැ. So such kind of ethics the review by the audit committee. Right. The audit committee must actively monitor the effectiveness of the control over financial reporting. Right. So directly they are looking at the financial reporting, even though they are looking at the internal controls, but they are having a kind of work to do with the control regarding the financial reporting, right? And needs to demonstrate professional skepticism when doing so. This will means consider the personal and organizational structure issues, the control in place to guarantee information is correct and detect errors and the responsibilities for providing the information. Right? Right. Because through the financial reporting we have discussed, right? The financial statement fraud is most severe fraud that we can have. Through the audit committee, what we can do? We can check whether the proper controls are there when it comes to financial report. And the numbers should be correct. Errors should be detected. Right. So that should be ensured by the audit committee. Right. So that is one of the role under the review of internal controls. Right. The committee should also address the risk of frauds. So what do you mean by the risk of frauds? If we are doing something wrong intentionally, we call it as fraud. Right? Ensure that employees are aware of risk and that there are mechanisms in place for staff to report fraud and fraud to be investigated. Right? So most of the companies nowadays, they are having a whistleblowers. What do you mean by the whistleblower? Whistleblowers. Your work as whistleblower. Where you're laughing. Some people are working as whistleblowers. Right. And right. So one strategy. So recently, the one report is actually they have found most number of frauds have been recognized by the whistleblowers. Not the external auditors, not the internal auditors. Internal auditors, external auditors are made fraud study and whistleblower. Whistleblower. So what does whistleblower? It is like that. Whistleblowers again what? No idea. Whistleblowers? Yes, anonymous information providers. Yes. Yeah, not getting it. Whistleblowers are not creating. They are just. I know you can say they are working with the records mainly.
Right? So if someone is doing a kind of a fraud, right? They will look for another little bit fraud. So they will because then here again, right? Here automation will get appointment right? එතකොට අපි අතරම ඉඳලා අර කවුද රහස් පොලිසිය කියන්නේ ඇතුළේ ඉන්නවා. අරගෙන ඉතින් සමහර පොලිසියුත් ඉන්නවා අතන. දැන් ඇතුළේ ඉඳලා ඉන්සයිඩ් ඉන්ෆර්මේෂන් දෙනවා. මේගොල්ලෝ මේ විදිහට ප්ලෑන් කරන්නේ. මෙන්න මේ විදිහට දෙයක් වෙනවා. So these strategies we call it as whistleblower. Company ඇතුළේ ඉඳලා workers ලා ඉන්නේ. ඒ තමයි workers ලා ඉන්නේ එයාත් මේක කෙනෙක් විදිහට අපොයින්ට් කරනවා. But he is a whistleblower. එයා එතන එකපාරක් රිසර්ච් එකක් කරලා තිබ්බා මේ ප්‍රොෆෙසර් කෙනෙක්. එයාගේ රිසර්ච් එක තමයි කොළඹ දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ ඉන්න හිඟන්නන්ගේ behavior. behavior නිසා ඒගොල්ලෝගේ ආදාය. කොහොමද ඒ රිසර්ච් එක කරන්නේ? There's a book also. You can read that book. It's very good. අපිට ගිහලා අහන්න බෑ වගේ ආදායම් කියන්නේ. කඩේ කොම් පොඩක් කඩේ පස්සේ කිය වර්ෂිත වෙනවා ආදායම්. මොකද කරන්නේ? එයා ගන්න පිළිරි. අවුරුදු. තොතම යා ඉස්පෙක්ට් කරගත්තේ මේක තමයි කොළඹේ behavior එක මේගොල්ලෝ ඊකම් එක මෙච්චරයි. එයා පොත කියලා දෙනවා. ඒක ලස්සන පොතක් තියෙනවා. කියලා බලන්න. ඒ වගේ තමයි whistleblowers. whistleblowers ඔයගොල්ලෝ අතර ඉන්න සමහර ඔයගොල්ලෝ කම්පැනි එකේ තියෙන බවත් එක කනෙක්ට් whistleblowers බත් එක කරනවා 100 ගන්නකොට ඊළඟට දැන් appointments දෙනවා right you know companies are giving appointments for whistleblowers. That's the one of the best strategy to identify fraud in the business. අනිවාර්යෙන් කම්පැනිස් වල ඉන්නවා. ඒවල ඔයගොල්ලෝ අතරත් ඉන්නවා ඔයගොල්ලෝ කම්පැනිස් වල ඉන්නවා. Right? So one work of the audit committee is to identify the risk of fraud. What kind of risk we are having in terms of frauds, like in terms of intentional acts by the people, right? And we need to propose a mechanism in place for staff to report fraud, right? And fraud to be investigated. Like you need to have a mechanism to report the frauds and also the investigation proceedings, right? Each year, the committee should be responsible for reviewing the company's statement of internal control prior to its approval by the board, right? Right. So who is responsible for the internal control? Statement, company statement of internal control to the responsible party. Who is preparing this? Internal control, we can say risk management policy. So mainly this is prepared by CEO, right? CEO, right? Then CEO presented to the board. So board. You mean to the audit committee, right? Audit committee will review it, right? So once it is reviewed by the audit committee, then they will put it again to the approval. Then only it will happen. Right. Okay. The committee should consider the recommendation of the auditors in the management letter and management response. Because the committee's role is ongoing, it can also ensure that recommendations are published and see that actions are taken as appropriate. The committees may play a more active supervisory role, for example, reviewing the major transaction for the reasonableness. Right. So what is this? The committee should consider the recommendation of the auditor in the management letter. What do you call the management letter? We call it as FZ in auditing. Management letter. What do you mean by that? So normally, auditors are providing a letter to the management. So in there, they have highlighted what are the deficiencies in the
when they are doing a audit, but they have found. These are the corrective action you need to have. So that is directly going to the audit committee through the board. Then board needs to do. They need to look at this recommendation, right? Whether management is responding to this, right? Whether the actions are taken, right? Proposed by the auditor, right? The actions that they have to allow the MLA ke දාන්න. Right. ඕගොල්ලෝ දාලා තියෙනවද දන්නවද? දැන් අපිට හරිම ලේසි එක තමයි ඊළඟ මුලින්ම දැන් ඔඩිට් කරන්න ගියාම කරන එකක් තමයි යවුද MLA ගන්නවා. ලේසි යවුද MLA කරගෙන බලනවා කොහෙද මුන් වරද්දලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉස්සෙල්ලා බලනවා මේක මුන් කරනවා දැන්. කරන්න නැත්නම් ටක් ගාලා MLA. ML points තමයි දාන්නේ. ඔඩිට් එක අවබෝධ කරගන්න එක තමයි ML points. Because from the audit opinion, we can't show the outcome. Even though we can provide opinion. And we can say the final result was okay without doing anything. Right? So how we are showing the outcome through that trend? Because company is looking at this April report, the management letter, because they need to improve their operations. Right? ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඔඩිට් එක කරලා ගියාම පාර්ට්නර්ට ML පොයින්ට්ස් හද ML පොයින්ට්ස් හද දාන්න ML පොයින්ට් කොහොමද දාන්නේ අදහද දාන්න ML පොයින්ට්ස් අපල නේ මුලින්ම කරන්නේ ගියවුරුද්ද ඉතලා දෙනවා කියනවා ගියවුරුද්ද කරලා දෙනවා තාක්කල ML එකට දානවා තාක්කල යන්න දෙන්න නැහැ හොරෙක් ඉවරද ඔප්ෂන් ඔඩිට් කමිටි එකේ කියනවා ගියවුරුද්ද තිබ්බ මේ අවුරුද්දේ කළා ML පොයින්ට්ස් තමයි අපි වුණා එතකොට ඔඩිට් කමිටි එකේ වර්ක් එකක් තමයි මේ ඔඩිටර්ස් වල සජෙස්ට් කරන ML points right but appropriate actions are nothing like the one right and you need to have a more active supervisory role so once you are doing the major investments once you are doing a major transaction in the business so that all transactions will be supervised by the audit committee right supervised by the audit. Right. Then the third one, review of risk management. That's the third work that audit committee should do. Right. This includes sometimes we are having a different risk management committee. Right. In a board. Right. So if you are having a different risk management committee, so that work is passed to that committee. From the committee. After the company risk management committee කියලා වෙනම එකක් තිබ්බොත් May work එක ඒ කමිටි එකට පාස් වෙනවා. Not the work of the audit but generally we have the committee and risk management committee are the same committees. So when it comes to the audit committee, that is the third work, review of risk management. This includes confirming that there is a formal policy in place for risk management. So you need to have a kind of a policy, risk management policy. That we call it as enterprise risk management policy in the business. Right. And that the policy is backed and regularly monitored by the board. The committee should also review the arrangements, including training for ensuring that managers and staff are aware of their responsibilities. Committee members should use their own knowledge of the business to confirm that risk management is updated to reflect the current posture and strategies. The risk management policy suggested by the management, right, should be reviewed by the audit committee. And see whether with their experience, see whether this is okay to go. Right? Is okay to go. Right? The extent of their work may depend on whether there is a separate risk management committee. Right? If there is a separate risk management committee, that work is passed to that committee. This work. Right? If there is a no risk management committee, the audit committee should do this, the risk management part. Right? Clear? So then the fourth work, oversights of internal audit. Right? Oversights of internal audit. So internal audit, we can do in the two ways, right? We can have a separate department in the company and the board. If you want, you can have a out for the company to do the internal, right? So even though it's outsourced or it's coming from internally, right? The reviewing of the internal audit should be done by the audit committee. Right? The audit committee needs to oversee the work of internal audit, right? Because when it comes to internal auditing, sometimes there's a kind of concern regarding the independence. So how we are ensuring that independence is there? They are not reporting to the board. They are directly reporting to the audit committee, right? So therefore, the audit committee needs to do the oversight of the work of the internal audit and ensure its work support the company's strategical objectives and compliance needs for the company. This mainly includes two tasks: reporting relationships and annual review of the internal audits. Right? So reporting relationships, internal audit normally reports to the audit committee for the following reasons. So these are the reasons why the internal audits reports to the audit committee. One is to maintain the independence. We have discussed, right? Because internal auditors are internal employees. Sometimes the independence is not there. Right? So therefore, to make sure the independence is there, audit committee should directly report to the, not to the board, audit committee. Right? And provide the strategies oversights of the internal audit. The committee has a responsible for determining the strategies adopted by the internal audit. Right? Because we are in the audit committee, we are the finance experts, internal audit experts. So they are providing guidelines to the internal auditors to do. Right? The internal audit, අපිට ඕනෑම කරගන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් අපි කිව්වොත් එහෙම මැනේජ්මන්ට් එක විදියට මෙන්න මේක ගිහිල්ලා ඔඩිට් කරලා බලන්න. කෑෂ් රිපෝට් එක හරියද? right? මේ ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් එක හරියද? internal audit එක අපි ප්‍රොපෝස් කරන්න පුළුවන් work එක. scope එක අපි ඩිසයින් කරමු. So that scope is decided by the audit committee. Right? Provide the authority needed. Right? The need for the internal audit to have whatever access is necessary to people and document, and that there should be no go areas. Right? What do you mean by that? So let's say if you are reporting to the board, what will happen? In the board, we are having the executive directors. We are having the CEO. Right? Then CEO, you know, we are internal auditors are the under the stock එක බලන්න යන්න දෙන්න. එතකොට very වෙලාවට internal auditors board එකට report කරලා මොකද වෙන්නේ? Internal auditors මොකද කරන්න බෑ. Right? They are reporting to the audit committee. So therefore, in audit committee can give the authority. Right? Give the authority. මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නේ management එකට out. හැබැයි internal audit ඉන්නේ management එකේ part එක. Right? So they can give the authority to the internal auditor if it is necessary. Right? Ensure action taken for the audit topic. The audit committee should provide a forum for internal auditors. The conclusion to be considered fairly. It can also follow up the reports of internal audit by obtaining evidence of whether its recommendations have been implemented. It has the authority to hold managers accountable if they have failed to take actions. Right? දැන් ගත්තොත් එහෙනම් කම්පැනිස් වල ගොඩක් ඉන්ටර්නල් ඔඩිට් එකේ දෙන සජෙෂන්ස් පිළිගන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතින් අපිත් එක වැඩ කරන CEO කියනවා ඔයා CEO යටතේ ඉන්නේ. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ගත්තොත් CEO මැනේජර් CEO තමයි හෙඩ්. හෙඩ් යටතේ තමයි ඉන්ටර්නල් ඔඩිට් එකක් තියෙන්නේ. ඉන්ටර්නල් ඔඩිට් එක සජෙස්ට් කරනවා CEO මෙන්න මේ චෙක් එකට හරියට සයින් කරලා නැහැ. right? චෙක් එක සයින් කරලා මේ ප්‍රොසෙස් එක යනවා. CEO කියනවා මම මොකද මෙයා කියන වැඩ කරන්න කියලා. He will ignore. Right? But because the audit committee is involved in right? Audit committee ignoring, it has the authority to hold managers accountable if they have failed to take actions. Right? Audit committee can make management accountable to the internal auditor's recommendation. Right? So annual review of internal audit, the review should cover the formal terms of references and access. Assess whether they are adequate. It should also cover the following aspects of the internal audit. Standards including objectivity, technical knowledge and professional standards of internal reviewers for resources, reporting arrangement, work plan, results, how we are having the connection with the external auditors. All these things should be decided by the audit committee. Generally, the internal auditors' work should be decided by the audit committee. මොනවද report කරන්න ඕන? කොහොමද relationship එක maintain කරන්නේ external auditors ඔත් එක්ක? මොන වගේ resourcing කොච්චර staff එකක් දෙනවද? මොකක්ද scope එක? audit කරන්න ඕන internal audit විදිහට මෙන්න මේක විතරද? All these things are given by the audit committee to the annual internal audit. Like scope, standards, resources, reporting arrangements, work plan, right? The connection with the external auditors and the results, right? The head of the internal audit should have direct access to the audit committee, right? Audit committee can directly report කරන්න access තියෙන්න ඕනේ internal audit head. Right. So that is how you are ensuring the corporate governance system. And directly access නැත්නම් internal head of internal audit head එයා ගිහලා CEO ට කියනවා. මට audit committee කියලා මේ කියනවා. මට ඉලක්කයි. CEO කරපු වැඩක් තියෙනවා නම් CEO කවදාවත් කියලා audit committee කියන්නේ නැහැ. So therefore they need to have a direct access. The head of the internal with direct access to the audit committee. Right. So next one is as audit committee, you need to have kind of a relationship with the external auditors, which we have discussed, right? The audit committee task here will include being responsible for appointment or removal of the external auditors as well as fixing their remuneration, right? Appointment and removal of the external auditors, right? As well as fixing their remunerations. දැන් මේ appointment එක responsible වෙන appointment එකට. හැබැයි මේ appointment එක ඉන්නේ කොහෙද? should be coming with that AGM. Annual general meeting වලින් එන appointment එක මේවා කරන එක තමයි audit committee එකේ task. So if they want to remove the external auditors, they have to report to the annual general meeting. Right. They have to get the approval from the annual general meeting. No? Then only you can remove the external auditor. Right. And the remuneration also, they are looking at the remuneration of the auditors, so they can discuss with the auditors and they can suggest it to the board. Right. Consider whether there are any other threats to external auditors' independence. Right. Independence use one of the right. In particular, the committee should consider non-audit service provided by the external auditors, paying particular attention to whether there may be conflict of interest. Right. So some, as I mentioned before, some audit firms are helping to some standards, accounting standards. And for example, for the insurance company, definitely they are now dealing with big issues regarding the IFRS 17. So definitely the advisory service is provided by the external auditors, external audit companies. So we have kind of a conflict of interest. That's self-reviewing that is there, right? Then discussing the scope of the external auditors prior to the start of the audit. This should include consideration of whether external auditors coverage of all areas and location of the business is fair and how much external audit will rely on the work of internal audit. Right. So before starting the external audit, right, in the planning level, we are having a planning discussion with the management. Basically, we are having the discussion with the audit committee. Someone in audit committee discussions, දෙකක් යනවා. Audit එක කරද්දී එකක් තමයි අපි start කරන්න කලින් audit planning level එකේදී. එකක් මැද යනවා අන්තිමට ඉවර කරනවා තුනක් තමයි. Generally දෙකක් තමයි යන්නේ. Right? එතකොට planning level එකට කොහොමද discuss කරන්නේ? audit committee එක බලන්න ඕනේ auditors ලා ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඕන ටික cover කරනවා. Significant account ටික cover කරනවා. Right? Audit committee එක ensure කරගන්නවා. Right? So audit committee එක ensure කරගන්න ඕනේ මොනවද auditors කරන්නේ? Right? මොන වගේ areas ටික cover කරා? Right? areas අපේ significant accounts වලින් cover වෙනවා. ඊළඟට location එක බලන්න audit එකේ. external audit එකේ location. Right? ඒක fair කියලා. access තියෙනවද නැත්නම්? හැමදාම access තියෙනවා. external audit කියලා සාමාන්‍ය පොඩි අනේක ඉන්නේ පොඩි ගන්න ගියාම පොඩි කාමරයක දානවා දුර දානවා ඒක නේද ඒක හොඳයි ස්පේස් එකක් right අර ප්‍රයාසයක් තියෙනවා Like I remember once we are doing audit in a company, right? So they have given us a kind of store for the auditors, small store. So we are doing audit. We are small work. We are doing audit. So once the director is coming to that audit to review the document. So what she has done is she withdraw the audit. Audit withdraw. One day I am let's take a board take a deal, a board committee take a deal. Over the fair place take a deal and auditors the audit. That's a consideration. That's kind of consideration. Goes to the auditor, then go to the board. Right? It's a big issue. Kelly to CFO even. Right? CFO the panel of with the some auditor, you go to managers on more power company. You buy a you. CEO not buy it. Audit managers. Or the deal report goes and you're what goes on job that is audit committee making accountable the managers. So they are having a high power. Right. Acting as a forum of, right, they are maintaining the relationship between the external auditors and the internal auditors. Right. They are working as a hub between the external auditors and the internal auditors. Right. So one strategy when we are doing the external auditors, we are looking at the internal auditors report. What internal auditors has been found. So then we can check whether still that consideration is there. Right. Helping the external auditors to obtain the information, making themselves available to external auditors for consultation, dealing with any serious reservation with the external auditors may express either about the accounts, the records, or quality of the company's management. So they need to open to the external auditors at any time to discuss any matters. Right. Right. So that is the work. There's a relationship that you have to maintain as a work of a audit committee with the external auditors. Right. Right. So are we up, right? Any questions? Any questions? No. So welcome the house class got to phone idaga. Also megam ganna. Mate pa ganna. Toma gela phone. Ekar wala kasam devar passe. That's what I was saying. Hondro idaga. Right. Let's 10 minutes of break. Right.
We call them by different sales, but quality department. Also, by 30, that's because of the internship. Then no plan to they were I'll be sitting for that. How much value marketing for that? Getting dollars, use for say around 750 or 800. Sleep, I can sleep like other than that. Because I sleep at around 3:34, then I can wake up 4. After I have to so 2 years and separate factors. And also using weekends. Weekends are well. Weekends are the required for. So other extra it's advertising firm. So they're starting their next project. Before that, they want to complete the bookkeeping part of the. So I will just that's kind of a paid leave, like just getting a call. So what I do is I manage the data and inventory. Actually, what I do is inventory is the data, it's not the data. So invisible for us, we consider inventory as the leads that we generate. So what's the budget? Just the data? Yeah. And yeah, yes. So lead means the information of the people. Leads. So we get outputs from company CEOs and then we sell those information to companies to do the marketing for them. For that they send the emails and all that get connected. The same thing they are doing in the Facebook, right? They are creating the lead sheet. You want to get the SPL. So nowadays what I'm doing is we are actually hiring to a program, right? Exactly. 190,000. Go to the Excel funds. So we need to get the people who apply for that program. What we can do is we can have a patient leads. Do that. We are generating leads. We are calling for that leads and similar sort of what we do for is US companies. So we have a data. So how are we getting that database? There are some companies from India. Apply like qualified leads and non-qualified leads. So they give us proper details of the contact numbers, emails, and what's their position and what their interest will be. Those kind of details they can result. It's like so how they are generating the. So mostly call calling. They call them and get asked. Yeah. So what they look for is like, are you interested in what say typically is amazing in the current system, what you're using, what improvements you look for, like the sales part. We qualify those leads and give it to us. So we double qualify, like call them also. Here's a 95 one day points. Like actually, you are just categorized. You are just taking a pure one from that. Yeah, from that we qualify properly. So the other one process is so take it so sales again. Say call it jingle bagala. After right here, match okay. Only you are not passed. Qualified ones, pass it. Only if we are interested that there's a need for a system or something, we sell it to the companies like Twitter. Leads them what the companies are going to. So we don't promise them that there's sale on this opportunity. So like they have. So why they are paying? Because you are giving a good leads. Yeah, good leads there, but you can to secure your company, you need to provide the good leads. Yeah, but good leads will handle a sale like this. That's a like outcome that yeah, so not another point is that maybe like down the road within 1 year or 2 years, your DM system can change. So you will have a Yes, you know more than that. So they will use करना बहुत कुछ pages and all that. मतलब ये लोग होने लगा यार से होगा दिन को प्लानिंग होगा marketing करते हैं interested की तरह से ये सब मैनेज भी करो मैनेज I started this 8% of investing in marketing better to see not see I started streaming it third stage again so stream yeah Srilanka is a bit expensive so I go in the stream so I started streaming it third stage exams in July so once you complete the stream you can get the exemption of stream I'm not sure but CM yes CM I think again I should try like it was my MBA but definitely you can get the exemption to the degree or something so my plan was to go into marketing so after completing stream there's the option of doing the MBA from there so but I need to get knowledge right so doing some more so better to go with the university MBA marketing that's good I don't know whether they recognize this or not but most important thing for me is to get the knowledge and rather than the qualification knowledge you can just go in yeah lecturers so Srilanka like job market tickets streaming well so they already had like when I go refresh on our CA in the home Srilanka job market is enough right so yeah making it expensive I start because they said that better time on proper and the tapara now both continue to I'll be yeah because I anyways I have about 2 years of training for CA also become a power and is like hospital plan yes older I'm 27 I'll be 28 next year I will start with you what happened I didn't have any plan on starting or doing a degree after ALS I just came here so what happened I didn't think of doing a degree or anything so that's the reason what happened then right now that's right so I started working at that I worked there for like 9 months and then I got the opportunity to work at 1980 social foundation they are not doing any qualifications I think like when I was working in 1980 social foundation the manager told me that you have capable of doing something rather than just finishing it here start a degree or something then I started this was a bit late but then you went to them once this finish you can be part of that started so because you are getting exception so number of the you go for the extensions I completed like level 2 so level 8 so slowly they are get the corporate level I'll go for December exams and then you will finish off corporate so what CA का करला degree extensions का नहीं कर because if I take extension of degree I can use CA qualification get other exceptions so total completing CA as well same syllabus December I will be like corporate level I sorry Sort of all of this. So I professional development priority is a job pressure. But I do I would say I do. You can get money extra, but yeah, I don't know. Just like about mother and some believe learn about that. That's why I live in the Kumanas and we say without either. This is like a very but I know that thing our monkey was also giving also pattern. I was currently looking over it. They were so excited. Turns to me, I was about like a good percent also immediately upload. Take one. I got the markets. We sell the planning. He was subject ready. Because of all the technical. Suppose I wish that. Was it like the say intensive again, yes, globalization and digital transformation. Yes, area. Proposal area. Because I understand million degree. Alisa.
Right. So I'm moving on to the remuneration committee. Right. So ask your friends to come on. So based on remuneration committee, in remuneration committee, what we are doing is we are looking at the remuneration. We need to decide the remuneration. Once they are defining the remuneration, you have to look at whether that candidate or whether the director is suitable to get that remuneration. That means he's having that candidate. Right. Million disagree or not, but yeah, qualification. So the remuneration committee remuneration decide remuneration for example, they can decide the remuneration for the director. So if you are an executive director, this is the remuneration package we have. Okay. So once the new director is coming up, so you need to analyze the director, whether that director is having some caliber. So that's why in that remuneration. If not, we can answer. That will be done by remuneration committee. Right. So remuneration package they have decided. So once they have decided, right, they need to look at the individual person, whether that package is enough to that person. Sometimes they have to give higher amount than the decided by. You need to acquire the best people, right? Clearly, adequate remuneration has to be paid to directors in order to attract and retain. Very important. You need to attract the directors and retain the directors. Right? So the directors are attract or retain. So the directors are gone. I will retain. Make a competitive market again. So the Samara companies, the directors are gone private. So director are opportunity. So what you have to do is you have to retain that director. Because they are the people who make the decisions. And if it is having a changes regularly, what will happen? Then government change, make marking government, our government. What will happen? The policies will be changed. Right? Approaches will be changed. It is not good to the government. So one of the major roles of the remuneration is to retain and attract the directors, to design the remuneration to retain and attract the directors. Right? Individual of sufficient caliber, right? So you need to look at the sufficient caliber. That is very important. The directors again, you need to look at the sufficient caliber. So if you are appointing directors for the audit committee, you need to have a financial background. Right? So you need to look at the diversity. That caliber should be there when you are deciding the remuneration. Remuneration package should be structured to ensure that individuals are motivated to achieve performance levels that are in the company and shareholders' best interest as well as their own personal interests. Remuneration කියන එක වෙනම කාරණාවක්, right? So remuneration එක base කරලා තමයි මිනිස්සු එන්නේ. So if you are getting a more payment, then you are attracted to do that. Other than the self-satisfaction. So why we are coming sacrificing our weekends? Because of the payment. Pay. Other than that, we are self-satisfaction. Like us directors also, in fact, we do develop some attractions. Right? Motivate to achieve the performance level that are in the company and shareholders' best interest as well as their own personal interest. So that is one of the responsibility or the role of the remuneration committee. However, directors being paid excessive salaries and bonuses has been seen as one of the major corporate abuse for many years. As a solution to this problem, the remuneration committee will be appointed. Right. Some directors look at those, they don't look who salaries here. Right. So they go to the money. That is why the remuneration committee is appointed to overcome that issue. The remuneration committee plays the key role in establishing remuneration arrangements. In order to be effective, the committee needs to determine both the organization's general policies on the remuneration of executive directors and specific remuneration package for each director. So you need to have a general remuneration package and also you can have a specific remuneration package for each director based on their qualification. Right. If you are a director, this is the package, general package. So let's say the Prakash is appointed as a director. So he's like a different recommendation package based on his qualifications. Right. The UK Corporate Governance Code suggests measures to ensure that the committees is independent. Right. The remuneration committee should be independent, including requirements requiring the committee to be staffed by independent non-executive directors. Ensure that the executive directors do not set their own remuneration levels. Right. The directors of the economic remuneration design करकर very independent non-executive directors of the staff on a committee. Right. Guidance from the Association of Critics ensure stress the importance of remuneration committee, bring independent thought and scrutiny to the development and review process together with an understanding of drives of the business that contribute to shareholders' wealth. So that what they have highlighted. So when it comes to the remuneration committee, the members of the remuneration committee should be independent unnecessarily. Because if you are having an executive director in the remuneration committee, it will be in the corporate governance principles. Because that they can decide their own salaries. Right? It's not good. So remuneration policy, issues connected with the remuneration policy may include the following. So these are the key points in the remuneration policy. Pay scales apply to each director package. Right? Directors of the packages more take a level sort. Right? Some are companies will they are level 1 director, level 2 director, level 3 director. So they are having different packages. Right? The proportion of the different types of rewards within each package. Sometimes they are having a vehicle, right? Vehicle allowance. Sometimes they are having a mobile phone allowance. Like they are having different allowances, different packages, different rewards are there. The period within which performance-related elements become payable. What proportion of reward should be related measurable performance or enhance shareholder value and the balance between short and long-term performance elements. Transparency of the director's remuneration, including pension rights in the annual accounts. Right. So all these things should be there in the remuneration policy. This is not testable in exam, but for your knowledge only. Right. So questioning of company, when establishing the remuneration policy, the remuneration committee has to take into account the question of its companies relative to other companies. Right. The UK Greenberry report highlighted a number of factors which the remuneration committee should consider. Recruitment and retention difficulties, the behavior of others in the sector, level of competition, risk, challenges, complexity, diversity, and internal threats, special expertise, and the understanding requirements. Right. So when you are positioning the remuneration package, so these factors you need to consider. Right. Right. So the risk committee is a kind of a part of the audit sometimes. Sometimes we have to separate risk committee. Right? Some other companies audit committee විතරක් තියෙනවා. Risk management committee ගන්න නැහැ. දැන් ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ලංකාවට තමයි PLC companies ඔක්කොමගේ risk management committees තියෙනවා. Right? So what the risk management committee is doing? So they are basically look at the company's risk. What kind of future risk, what kind of current risk they are having, and what kind of risk responses are they are doing, and what kind of strategies the company is following to address those risks. Right? So that's what they are reviewing. Board also need to consider whether there should be a separate board committee with responsible for monitoring and supervising risk identification and the management. Right? Because we have discussed under the audit committee, we can have the risk management sort of activities. But if you want to have a more focus on the risk management, right, you can have a separate committee or risk management committee to have a more focus on the risk management. Because audit committee is doing other work as well. So therefore, if you want to have some sort of more attention on the risk area, so we can have a risk management committee. Right. So most of the companies nowadays they are in the risk management because the risk is something very important for business. Right. If the board doesn't have a separate committee under the UK Corporate Governance Code, the audit committee will be responsible for the risk management. Right. Companies that are involved in the significant financial market risk will often have a risk management committee. So Sri Lanka, we are having a big risk in the market, right? Because it's highly volatile, Sri Lanka market. So therefore, definitely we need to have a audit committees, the risk management committees in the board as an outcome. A risk management committee can help provide the supervision required clearly prove to be effective. The members will collectively need a high level of financial expertise. Right? Same like audit committee, risk management committee also needs to have a finance expertise. Right? Because we are mainly dealing in the financial risks. Right? In the businesses. Right? So therefore, we need to have financial expertise in this document. So what are the roles? Approving the organizational risk management strategy and risk management policy, right? So every company nowadays in the annual report, they are having the ERM framework, enterprise risk management framework. Right? Every annual report, we can see ERM framework. Because that is very important, because investors are looking at that. Right? If the company is not present with the ERM, so sometimes they are not investing in that company. So therefore, they are presenting their strategical plan regards to the risk management. What kind of strategies they are having? For example, they have identified future risks. We are having this kind of competition. So what we have to do? These are the risk responses. These are the strategies we are following. Right? So each and everything you need to show. Right? So that policy document, that management strategy should be approved by this risk management company before presenting. Right? Reviewing reports on key risks prepared by business operating units, management, and the board. Monitoring overall exposure to risk. Right? Monitor then company expose risk export right? Monitor. Right? Assessing the effectiveness of the organizational risk management system. Providing early warning to the board on emerging risk issues and significant changes in the company's exposure to risk. Because you are monitoring the risk, right? Which is regarding to the company, right? If there are any kind of things happen in future, so you need to provide early warning to the board. This can be happening in future. For example, the best example is the COVID-19. So now there's a concern coming up now. Another COVID-19, COVID-20 is coming up, right? So now the board risk management committee should be analyze those kind of issues and provide some early warning. This kind of a issue is there. So if it is come, these things we have to. So you have to provide an early warning. Right? Because risk management is playing a major role in the business. So that's why we are having a separate discussion on risk management. The risk manage කරගත්තා ඒක තමයි risk වැඩි කොහොමද? ඔයගොල්ලෝ තියෙන risk එක කොහොමද manage කරගත්තා ඒක තමයි ඔයාලට වැඩි තියෙන ලොකුම risk එක. තේරුණාද? The company එකේ risk management එක හරියට කරගෙන නැත්නම් ඒක තමයි company එකේ තියෙන ලොකුම risk. Right. So therefore we need to look at the risk. So one of the strategy we can do to have risk management is we are having a risk management committee. This is one of the strategy to manage the risk. Risk management committee strategy is risk management committee. Right, company. Right. Right. So, reviewing the company's statement of internal control with reference to the risk management prior to the endorsement by the board. Note that the focus is on supervision and monitoring rather than the committee having responsible for day-to-day decision making and implementation of policies. Right. So, when it comes to risk management committee, so actually they are not providing the info. What they are doing is they are monitoring and supervision. What is doing? Right? Risk management committee can supervise करने का monitor करने का. मैं आप prepare करने को. Risk management policy prepare करने को. CEO head කරපු team එක තමයි risk management policy එක design කරන්නේ. Design කරන්නේ. ඒකෝ මේගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒක monitor කරනවා. මේක adequate enough ද? Right? මේ තියෙන risk එක address කරන්න මේක ඇතිද? Right? සහ මේක supervise කරලා බලනවා. මේක හරියට වෙනවද? මේ කියන්නේ. Right? ඒ work එක කරන්නේ risk management committee. Right? Right. So when it comes to this committees, or the committees we have discussed, audit committee, regulation committee, nomination committee, and the risk management committee. Right. So basic question that can be asked is, I can ask the roles, right? Roles and the functions of the committees, right? So my major focus is going to the audit committee, right? Right. සාමාන්‍යම ප්‍රශ්නයක් ගොඩක් කරලා ඔඩිට් කමිටි ආන එක තියෙන possibility එක 90ට වෙනවා. Because my major focus is audit. Because if you are a listed company, if you want to become a listed company in the Colombo Stock Exchange, definitely you will have a audit committee. So therefore, I will ask some questions from the audit committee in the paper. Right. Right. Any questions? Any questions? Right. So I'm having a question. So let's look at this question. LLL company is listed on its country stock exchange. The following individuals serve on the board of directors. Azim is a non-executive director and he's a chairman of the company. Right. It's a non-executive director and he's a chairman. And the Bernard, right, is the CEO and he is responsible for the day-to-day running of the business company. He's the CEO. Chan is a professional accountant and serves as a non-executive director. Right. Donald is a finance director and is an employee of the company. Is a legal paid and serves as a non-executive director. Frederick is the marketing director of a manufacturing company and serves as a non-executive director. Right. So what is the question? Which of the following is the most appropriate composition of the directors for LL companies audit committee? What is the appropriate composition? What is the appropriate composition? Yes. Answer A, B, C, or D. A. A. Right.
This chat should be, I will go for D because, articulate, and articulate doesn't.
So going with A. Answer A.
Wrong.
Right. So obviously, chance could be there, right? Right? He's a professional accountant. Right. So then, so Asif should not be there, right? The jam. Right. Right. Then, when it comes to answer A, the donor, he's a finance director. He's not a director. He's not. He's an executive director. Right? We can't have the executive director being the audit committee. Right? And he's a finance director. He was directly connected with the audit. Yeah? He's directly connected with the audit. So he can't be there in the audit committee. Definitely. Right. Right. Then yeah, we can have a legal. He's also non-executive director. We can have him. Right. And Frederick is also working as a marketing director of a manufacturing company. So working as a director in a separate company. Not working as a marketing manager in this company. And also he's a non-executive director. So most appropriate composition would be as a D. Right. Yeah. Asif to Galle reject right? Whether they are chairman, right? Director voting, so they are rejected. So here, definitely this answer is incorrect because if he comes, it's incorrect. Finance director can't be in their audit committee. No point of time audit committee. Right. Yes. Look at that one. This one is also. The board of directors of JJ company has decided to increase the basic salary of the chief executive officer by 20% in order to bring her pay into the line with those occupying similar position in the industry. This action will be achieved which of the following purposes. What happened? The board of directors of JJ has decided to increase the basic salary of the chief executive CEO salary. They are going to increase by 20%. Right? In order to bring her to pay. Right? Bring her to pay into line with those occupying similar position in the industry. And then you correct. Right. This action will achieve which of the following? The first one, improve the prospect of the returning the chief executive officer, increase the productivity of the chief executive officer by at least 20%. Motivate the chief executive officer to achieve long-term targets, create real job satisfaction for the chief executive officer. C. Motivate the chief executive officer to achieve long-term targets. Why? Okay, C. That's the action behind. Yes. A. Why? Yes, A is the correct answer. Yes, why? Why we have discussed? Right. So under the remuneration code, what is our purpose? Attract and retain our directors. Right. Right. Improve the prospect of retaining the chief executives. Right. So now you can see, right? It's very difficult. In your MCQ paper, right? You are getting MCQ questions in the quiz, no? Right. Create greater job satisfaction for the chief executive officer. Debate, no? Right? So what are you saying? D. දැන් මේක ඔක්කොම බලනකොට ඔක්කොම හරි වගේ ඉන්නේ. ඔය අපි බලන්න most appropriate answer එක. මේ ඔක්කොම achieve වෙනවා තමයි. right? සීල ඉස්සර කරනවා අපි motivate වෙනවා අපි salary වෙනවා motivate වෙනවා ඔසියත්. right. ඊට පස්සේ long term targets achieve කරන්න තමයි අපි salary වැඩි කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක හරි. right? But we are now discussing about corporate governance, right? Right? Not the CEO's achievements. Right? So why we are doing this 20% increment? Right? You need to think in a corporate governance perspective, not in the CEO's perspective. In the corporate governance perspective, what we need to have? We need to retain the same people in the decision making positions to ensure the corporate governance going for long term. That's the purpose. එතකොට මේක ආන්සර් කරන්න corporate governance perspective. එතකොට perspective එක තමයි බලන්න ඕනේ. අපි මේ corporate governance subject එකේ ඉන්නේ. එතකොට subject එකේ perspective එක තමයි අපි chief executive officer එක retain කරගන්නේ. එයාව motivate කරගන්න ඉන්නේ. Here? You are the secretary of the medium-sized listed company. The company has recently appointed a new chairman of the audit committee, who has been asked by the chairman of the board of directors to organize the board annual review of the system of internal controls. Having been appointed only recently, the audit committee chairman does not fully understand why the review is necessary or how it should be carried out. He is aware that the company is expected to follow the rule guidelines in carrying out his review. He thinks that you will be able to provide him with useful information and offer some advices. suggests measures that might be taken by the audit committee on behalf of the board to carry out the review of the effectiveness of the system of internal control. What you have to do, suggest the measures. This you need to highlight the measures right, that might be taken by the audit committee on behalf of the board. Like we know we are appointing the committees on behalf of the board to pay more focus on the areas, right? To carry out a review of the effectiveness of the system, right? Now, effectiveness of the system of internal control system. So effectiveness එක බලන්න audit committee එක විදියට අපි ගන්න ඕන measures මොනවද? Right? So what are the measures? To look at the effectiveness of the controls, internal controls. What are the measures? Answers are there. The final slide. Yes. Right. Establish a review procedure. Develop a clear plan to review, including timelines, key areas to assess, and the methods to be used. Engage internal and external auditors. As audit committee, you can engage the external auditors and internal auditors to review the internal controls, to look at the internal controls. Collaborate with the internal auditors to gather insights on the current status of the internal control and engage external auditors to provide an independent assessment. Right? Risk assessment, they conduct comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential areas of concern and ensure that all significant risks are being effectively managed. Whether they are having the adequate internal controls to address all the risks they are having. Right? Management feedbacks, document review, employee awareness, regular monitoring and reporting, follow-up actions. So those are the measures we can have to look at the effectiveness of the internal controls in your business. Right? As already come. Right? Follow-up the employee training, awareness to training, right? It does a management feedback, documents, documents, Hari authority එක පාස් කරලා තියෙනවා check එක sign කරලා ඒ authority එකට වෙනවා payment voucher එක පාස් දෙක විදිහට වෙනවා right regular monitoring and reporting right you need to have a kind of a reporting system and you need to have the follow up actions so once you are suggesting any corrections whether they have actually corrected you have to follow up and see right so these are the measures you can do. So when it comes to corporate governance paper, you can think and write down. And think this should be the strategy you should follow. If you can rationalize that, that's okay. Right? But when you're writing, you will write in a corporate governance perspective. Right? Clear? Right. So any questions? Yes. Online people, any questions? No? Can you hear me? Are you guys on TV? No? So there also I'm having a tutorial, right? Same as last week, right? You can use as a kind of a short form, right? So basically, I'm focusing on these tutorials when I'm preparing for the paper. Right? Right. सामान्य मामले tutorial लेकिन तो वहाँ फंस जाता है. Case study का हाल है making आना तो मैं दान. तो वो लोग एक आंसर करना तीनों ना बोल सकते. मैं उत्तर लिया ना मैं case study का follow कर लो मैं उत्तर लिया. मैं ये knowledge को पालन मिलेगा. तो मैं बैठे case के निकल किया ना. මේක පාඩම් කළා බදාම මතකේ තියෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා point එක පාඩම්. But I need the rational answer. That's right. Analyze the case study with this knowledge you need to answer. Don't go to mathematics. Right. So each and every session after finishing of each and every session I have uploaded the tutorials. For the first 3 sessions I have uploaded the MCQs. You can remember. So because I'm mainly focused MCQs in that area. Right, to your quiz. From these one, I'm taking to the exam paper. Only few questions are there in the quiz. Right. Clear? Yeah. Any questions? Because we have to finish off today early time. So. Yeah, any questions? Nothing. All good. Yeah, I will make a note for the previous tutorial answer. Right? Once I have uploaded, I just go through the answers, then I will upload one with the answer to the lens. So they can you get answer. So it's not a yeah. Not a right. So what you can do is you can share the answer with your friends. And that's knowledge. Only the two assignments are there. One is quiz, one is presentation. You don't have any practicals or something. If you want, I can see. That's another story. Right? You can, I can give if you want. So how come you are getting 50 marks for the assignments, right? Now go to 180 assignment take करना, कोई इतना करना नहीं, मतलब क्या तो कोई से करना डर लगे, right? वो हमारी किधर किलाड़ी वहाँ लोग किलाड़ी, मतलब ने वो हमारी कोई से का, आते के साथ ये वाले मतलब क्या होता है, ना मतलब क्यों अच्छा ही है, ये बार बार ये कल हमें क्या लगी था, हमें कोई से करना डर लगे ला, यार ऐसे का बता के ला नहीं, एग्जाम लिया ना बैठ के हमें क्या हुआ बस exam lihat dulu kamu kuis keren itu kan exam ya presentation lagi kita tapi ya makanya kuis people jadi praktik ini aduh kan ya lu kayak kata gitu botak praktik ini deh praktik ini botak sekian nih WhatsApp group kan di mana biasa ya ini exam lihat dulu itu apa tuh biasa ada loh ada teknik terus mana itu ya kuis itu band so they get color and some medical asada already you see there right yang berkata tu kan kalau yang memang sebab yang negara yang mana kata negara awasam high mangko ada dolar hari mana pitu bisa negara hotel itu sampai jadi bila it has to be and also I'm reducing 5 marks definitely out of 15 marks only I give the marks. Ini sama tak kerana apa kuis right? Mata kerana internet datang internet real tak kerana gini kali. Lanka dan ini orang itu semua internet nanti dah nane. Kau yang kamu kari mana mahal itu tak kali kadu bahagia tak kali maksudnya kau beri kara. Anika mangkuk namanya dah yang tu mama available deh. Mangkuk istilah orang yang mana. Mata kata kerana siapa? Internet lah, apa yang like lah, apa yang kita tahu lah. Mata kerana dia ni, aku jawab kerana dia ni. Ini ya, biar aku kan jadi kan. Laptop lagi value, dia pula. वो तो मैं क्या? ये excuse दे पाए. Zero excuses, zero preference there. I'm not accepting any excuse because I'm opening up for 1 hour. So you have 1 hour to do whatever you want. You can, if you don't have internet, you can hire a degree and go somewhere else and do the quiz. The आपको करना है वहाँ नहीं तो वहाँ नहीं तो करना तो आपको करना है वहाँ करना करना है अगर strategy का बात करें तो मुनाफा करना है quiz से करना है because if you are doing not doing because I'm not giving the quiz again. Zero probability से आप तेज नहीं करता है and also the presentations ask them to come to the presentation. Physically, you need to present here. Invisible people are not accepting, other than the online people. So others need to be present here, right? So I will inform through the bandwidth, the dates and the time, and also for your listeners, I will allocate time for each group, right? For example, first day I'm taking 8 groups, next day I'm taking 7 groups. So I will mention the names with the group number, with the time. Right? So if you are not available at that time, even one member is not available, you have to do the presentation. Right? If you are not doing the presentation, we are not taking the presentation, you can do it in next week. We are in different මම කියන්නේ experience තියෙන නිසා හරිද? යාළුවා තමයි බස් එකේ මග ඉන්නවා කියනවා. ඔයා ෆස්ට් ගෲප් එකට ඔයා පාන්දර අපි උදේ 8ට පටන් ගන්නවා නම් පාන්දර ඔයා 4කට ඉඳන් එනවනම් ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්න බෑ. right? what are you going to do? Right? So no excuses. Right? So I'm telling this at the first stage. We don't keep the excuses. Right? Acceptable excuses I'm accepting. Right? Some are the acceptable excuses. Right? Medical ground status. Whatever. Okay. But other than that, සීනි බෝල කාරණාවක් කියන්නේ අපේ බස් එක කරනවා බස් එක කැඩලා. right? එන්නා මොකද? ඉන්න ගියා වැඩිපුර. Or excuses. Right? I'm taking according to the group list, right? So you need to be there at given time slots. And also I will put one question from the presentation aspect to the question paper. From the historical part, if you are, I'm taking up one of the good presentation group and I will put that presentation as a question to the question paper. So you need to be there to listen to all the presentations which you want. Right? Right? So that's how it works, right? Any questions? No? Good? Bye, eh? Bye, then. We are quiz එක කරන්න බැරුණොත් ආපහු අරගෙන එකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. right? පොඩි රන් එකක් දෙනවා. නැත්නම් කියන්නේ තසාදන්න. මම ආයි quiz එක මොකද මම ඒ අනිවාර්යෙන් සියෙන් කියලා ගන්නවා. මොකද මම දන්නවා ඔයගොල්ලෝ කරනවා කියලා WhatsApp එකේ අරන් ෂෙයා කරගෙන. එහෙම වෙන්නේ නැහැ. එහෙම කරන්න එපා quiz එක කරන්න. right? පාරට ඉන්නවනේ යාළුවන්ට හැමෝම කියන්නේ. lectures ඉන්නන්න. මම ලිස්ට් එක දැන් මොනවද මම අපෝ ලිස්ට් එක දානවා ෂොට් කරගෙන නැති කට්ටිය මම අපෝ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා. ඊපස්සේ මම කියමු කරා හැබැයි ඒ ළමයා ආවේ නැති. එහෙම ඉන්න බෑ. right? Right? Alright, any questions? Nothing related to the subject? No questions? Great, everything is perfect. Great. No questions? Oh, very good. Oh. So, right. Alright, so then let's finalize the session. I will give you the QR code. QR code. Any questions from the online people? No? No questions? Guys, so we are in Kamukana, right? Other part of all the village names are there. Other part of the yes, can you hear? NTR students.